Hello, this is Catherine Marie, and you are listening to Long COVID Real Talk podcast. Today, we have a very special treat. We have Laurie with us, and she wanted to tell her story. And so I thought this would be a great time to do that. So, Laurie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am 60 years old and I am 3 months shy of having long COVID for 2 years.
Hmm.
My backstory is I own a dog grooming business, and on the weekends I used to take out horseback rides for a guest ranch out here, Tanque Verde Guest Ranch. I used to own horses myself. So my usual day was getting up at between 4 and 5, taking the dogs for a 5 mile walk, coming home, mucking after the horses, sometimes taking them for a ride and going to work, and then coming home and doing it all over again. And it was done with joy.
It sounds like a good life.
It really, I miss my before COVID life hugely.
So, what was the first thing that made you realize that something was wrong?
I was working at the ranch teaching kids how to ride. I was riding my very favorite horse. And I looked at my boss and said, I'm not feeling good. I feel like I've had the worst hangover in my whole entire life. I didn't feel comfortable getting back up on the horse. I was having vertigo. So I went home, called the doc, and a couple days later, he diagnosed me with long COVID.
Wow. So in some ways that is a cool part of the story because so many people are not diagnosed with long COVID, at the beginning. So how did that go? How did he know to diagnose you with that?
Um, I had done a lot of research
Hmm.
because I had not been feeling well, and we had gone through the testing for Parkinson's, for, mono, all of that stuff. And
Hmm.
everything came back positive. Everything came back fine.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
said, this is the only thing that I think it could be. And I agreed.
Wow. Good for your
Yeah.
doctor. That's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, you
Wow.
know what? He's a great doctor. He always listens to what's happening with you.
Yeah. It sounds like he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So once you got the diagnosis, what was what happened? How did it play out from there?
Um, it was pretty difficult. I was still trying to work as I was the owner of the dog grooming shop. There were days that I couldn't get out of bed, and I would have to call my employees and say, you could either take over the dogs that are in for the day or close the shop. And so they kind of took over, and there was a time that I really couldn't even get out of bed for a month. Maybe not that
Mm-hmm.
long, but it was just kind of walking around the house. Going to the grocery store I was out for 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And then some friends of mine found some vitamins that really helped. I was
Mm-hmm.
never on anything before. So I take one vitamin, I take omega 3, and I take a mushroom blend. And that
Okay.
seemed to help give me a little bit more stamina. But
Okay.
what really helped the most was you.
Oh, thanks.
Truly, it was you, because you were explaining what I was feeling. And
Yeah.
so it made me feel definitely not alone and not crazy.
Yeah.
And one of your advice, and a really good friend of mine too, was stop fighting this. You got to have your body heal.
Yeah.
So be in bed. It's not a
Hmm.
big deal. So
Yeah.
that's what helped a lot. An example of that is I flew to Chicago for a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I slept the whole plane ride there. I slept the whole car ride to the house. I was up for an hour and then I slept the whole next day. Out of 5 days, I was able to socialize for 4 hours.
Yes.
So that, it's hard and you have to swallow your pride. I had to get a wheelchair for the airport,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. But you know what? It's to honor yourself.
Yeah. And I bet for those 4 hours, people would not necessarily guess that anything was wrong because you were
Oh
fine just
my,
for a few hours,
oh my
right?
God, but you look so good.
I
Yeah.
know.
Uh-huh.
We get that a lot. Yeah.
I can
Ugh.
fake it good.
Yeah. It's amazing too. I don't, it's just, it seems like for me, when I'm around other people too, I just get really amped up and I get really happy and excited. And then I seem completely normal and then I'll crash later.
It's because of the energy that we're giving out, and it's so much fun energy, but
Yeah.
but that energy, even to, as you know, we're both going to crash after this.
Oh, yeah.
Even a good energy, it just zaps you because your body is constantly fighting itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried to add in um, walking.
Hmm.
And I went with a friend, and something that would usually take us maybe 4 minutes took us 25 minutes. And I said, I thought I was walking at a pretty good pace. And she looked at me and said, Oh my God, you were walking like a turtle.
Especially compared to what you used to walk, 5 miles every morning.
Right. And so, yeah, so I tried it, and I know I can't try it for a long time again.
Yeah. Yes. I've noticed that. Okay. One thing I wanted to go back. Can you say what supplements you're on just because I think that anyone listening might be interested?
Oh, yeah. So I take Nordic Naturals Ultimate Omega.
Mm-hmm.
I take two of those in the morning. And this has really helped because I've never done vitamins before. It's
Mm-hmm.
from Life Extension. It's two per day multivitamin.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything you need in it, plus, and it's natural, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice. Um, in the beginning, I took two a day, one in the morning, one at night, but I've cut it down to just one in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And the saver for me has been Host Defense. It's a mushroom blend. It's from my community. There's 17 different mushrooms in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that gives me some extra energy to get me through the day. I take sometimes I have to take three in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that helps a lot. And that's it.
That's no, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you had this really cool thing happen that has helped a lot, but how did you find the study that you were in?
When they first started asking for study people for the U of a couple years ago.
And that's the University of Arizona. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And there were different study groups all through the country. And, if you just kind of got online, so I was looking online, all the studies were for heart and lung. And so the first year, that's what they studied. And U of A Banner Health had called me and said that they were doing a neurological study, which is what affected me the most. So they got a hold of
Hmm.
me after me trying to get into several groups.
And how did you know to get into those groups? Or what did you do? How did you seek out being in a study?
Um, Friends of mine were. on me about getting into a study. So I went through the U of A Banner Health. There were government, I looked on anything that said long COVID studies. I just
Yeah.
clicked on it and went from there.
Okay. And just like called the number or whatever.
Yeah. And then, after so many rejections, I was like, all right, it's not happening. And then, a year and a half later, I get a phone call.
Okay. So
So
tell
that
us
was
about that,
pretty cool. Uh,
that phone call and everything that resulted from it.
so the phone call was just asking if I was still interested in doing the study. It was all neurological, which is what has affected me the most.
Hmm.
I had severe brain fog. Um, I couldn't I couldn't put words together. I would forget words. I would forget what I was doing after 30 seconds of doing it. Vertigo. It was, yeah, it was ridiculous. And so I went down to the Banner Hospital, the College of Medicine, and signed up. They took 7 vials of blood. They did brain study, just playing the games, seeing kind of where I was at. And don't mean to be obnoxious, but then I also had to mail in poop because apparently they figure out a lot of stuff through that.
Yeah. I had to do that too.
Yeah, it was weird,
It's
but
a joy.
okay.
It's a joy.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So the study total is 6 months. I'll be done with it in at the end of November. So they sent me an iPad. They sent me electrodes. They sent me a battery device because I was one of those that was selected to do stimulation while doing brain games
Okay.
on the iPad. And it was set up that we would do a Zoom call in the morning. Well, I chose to do in the morning.
Hmm.
Um, they would set me up with whatever dose I was going to get for the stimulation. And that
Hmm.
always varied, but it never hurt. Sometimes it would be like a really light vibration on your skin, and
Hmm.
it would start out low and be very continuous, going gradual higher until you were done. It was 30 minutes, 5 days a week for 10 weeks.
Wow.
That was a pretty big commitment, but
Yeah.
I always said I don't mind being a guinea pig if it's going to help me, and hopefully it'll help people in the future. I'm all for it.
Right.
Um, the first 2 or 3 weeks that I did it, everything got worse. I thought, oh my
Oh,
God, I made the biggest mistake. I'm so sad. And then all of a sudden, my head kind of cleared up. My vertigo wasn't as bad. I still have it. I wouldn't want to be on a horse yet. Um, but I found too that I was having a little bit more energy. And by the end of the 10 weeks, I have a positive attitude 95% of the time,
hmm.
which I'm a positive person to begin with. So when I lost that with long COVID, that was crushing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it gave me, it didn't give me huge energy, but it gave me a quarterback of what I had that I could at least be at work and sustain energy from about, I don't know, 8 o'clock till usually about 1:30. I was pretty done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that to me was really fantastic.
Hmm.
I feel a difference in myself. So I'm going to get these brain games because you can get them on the computer. I didn't know that there's a whole bunch of different ones, but I'm going to do the one that I've been doing because it
Hmm.
it reads what you're doing, and if you're not doing well enough, it'll back off some, and the better you do, the harder it becomes.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool.
That does sound cool. So there's like a feedback system.
Yes. I mean, they don't tell you, but you can
Mhm.
see on whether, there's different games. One of the games is there's a whole bunch of circles and they go around and they flash a number, and you have
Mhm.
to go 1, 2, 3, 4 as the numbers are, or the balls are circling,
Mhm.
which to me is a really hard task. But I found that when you don't do really well, they'll back the numbers off. And if you're doing really well that day, they add more really quickly.
To just see how far you can go.
Yeah, yeah.
So the study was it was the variable group was people with something they put around your head, like electrodes or something.
Yes, it had the headband with the electrodes, and it was a battery pack that they would call, and you would punch in whatever numbers
Mm-hmm.
for the dose code, and then yeah, then it would start doing its stimulation thing.
And were you doing this from home or did you have to go on site?
No, I was doing it from home. They mailed everything here.
Oh, that is so cool.
It was excellent.
Wow,
Excellent.
that's really
Yeah.
cool.
And so after the 10 weeks, I went back in and did more brain games with them. Like one
Mm-hmm.
of the games was they would give you 20 words.
Mm-hmm.
You'd listen to them from the computer. They'd turn it off. And then you would have to, not in order necessarily, but then you have to repeat whatever you remembered.
Oh, wow. That sounds really hard. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for chatting and letting us all know all of the stuff that you've learned in the study that you were in. And I'll definitely make sure I download the Brain HQ and maybe work up to 30 minutes. All right. Well, let's I think that is good for now and we'll keep it nice and short. Fantastic. Take care. Bye.